Hello, crypto boys and ghouls, and welcome back to the channel, Tales from the Cryptmancer, where we feature content on play-to-earn games on the blockchain, such as Splinterlands. And in today's video, I want to talk about some big news that you may have missed, and we're going to talk about why it's important, what it means for not only the future of Splinterlands, but perhaps the future of Hive, and how in the current bear market, this could be a game changer. So let's talk about the news, and I'm going to feature some content that came from an interview with Aggroed on Blockchain Gaming World from 2 days ago, where John Jordan sat down and talked with Aggroed and had some interesting nuggets of information that were released. And I'm going to start here with this clip from that channel, and I'm going to include the link to Blockchain Gaming World's interview here with Aggroed and to their channel. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. And let's roll the clip here.
We started working with larger brands. One of the ones that we've announced is a Warner Music, but there's also some sports leagues that we'll be working with. So in the not too distant future, I'm hoping really Q3 we're going to be rolling out other games, and those should have some pretty big brand names associated with them. And I think that'll make more of a splash than some of the stuff that we've done in the past. You see like a national sports league, and I don't know, you might pay attention a little bit more.
So that is some very interesting alpha there. We are talking not one, but multiple, looks like 2 sports leagues, partnerships being announced here with Splinterlands, the company, in the near future. These are signed deals where they're supposed to have live games in Q3. Well, Q3 is literally 2 weeks away. And this is crazy news that really I don't think has been talked about enough in the community. Let's hear a little bit more about some of the details here.
Our general thesis is like develop something awesome. People will continue to climb on board and come into this ecosystem, invent some of the coolest opportunities. And I think the scaling really comes when we integrate these brands, whether it's music and entertainment or whether it's sports and athletes. You know, when we go from a bunch of random wizards and orcs in our game to, you know, here are some of the hottest celebrities in the world, I think that's where that kind of like hype and wow factor comes from, and it's all going to use that kind of like baseline pieces from Splinterlands to get us there. So my working thesis goes something like people are the value. The actual thing that backstops the value of crypto, of all things here, are people. They're people accepting it, people trading it, people using it, people playing with it, people getting entertainment. Like, people themselves are the value. And so what I want to do is get as many people into this ecosystem as possible from a business standpoint. From a personal standpoint, I happen to think that cryptocurrency is like the single most important tool of our lifetime, and that it can help spread peace, prosperity, and freedom. And so personally, I want to get as many people into this ecosystem so that they, you know, those that aren't exposed to crypto or haven't used it before really start getting a sense of, you know, asset ownership, keys, private management, privacy, some parts that are public and transparent, but like, you know, pseudo anonymity of your account. There's like a lot here that I think is really empowering to a human that experiences it. So what these sports have done is aggregate millions, if not hundreds of millions of people as fans and watchers. And so to me, they represent, you know, on a business case, it's an extraordinary financial opportunity. And from an ecosystem, it's like a huge number of people that we can draw into this. So, you know, if I could keep launching games that are, you know, fantasy related or made up IP or whatever, but and we, you know, on a per card basis or a per pack basis, we'll make more money. But I think there's a real magic to brands and to, you know, trusted partners and to famous athletes and people that you look up to, and integrating that into this, I think will grossly accelerate the number of people in our ecosystem, the amount of money in our ecosystem, and the number of transactions that happen within it. I think there's a matter of scalability to what we're doing that nobody else in the blockchain world can touch. You know, we use our tech platform is basically build on the layer one and then really scale it with commercial grade Amazon servers. And that kind of approach and opportunity I don't see very much, but if you needed to ask how can you deliver millions of transactions to millions of people, Amazon Cloud is a pretty safe bet that you could do it that way. So at the end of the day, I think a lot of these projects that especially are built on Ethereum are going to run into severe scaling issues. And so some of them are going to do a phenomenal job of taking a lot of money from like a handful of Ethereum whales, and they'll make tons. Like, don't get me wrong, like that's a very profitable business, and we want to run a profitable business, but part of what we want to do is bring in the masses into crypto. And I think our games and the opportunity here of start up with an email and a password, swipe a credit card to get your first packs, cards that can be in the pennies that you can rent for fractions of a cent. Like this to me is a way that you're going to onboard masses of people in ways that some of these other projects I don't think can or will. Now I think when we get into something like soccer, where we're not totally reinventing or inventing a game from scratch. Somebody comes in and they know what a forward is, they know what a goalie is. We don't have to teach them this thing. They'll be familiar with the players, so they might already have a rank of who's the best and why should they play in different roles. Some of the stuff that's hard in Splinterlands, I think gets easier overnight just because it's in this world that people are familiar with.
So one of the things that we've talked about on this channel in the past is how bringing new players into the ecosystem and onboarding new users and getting them introduced to Splinterlands and crypto is key to the success of the game. And what we're seeing here is that Aggroed is talking about using sports leagues, partnerships, also the Warner Music partnership, which has already been announced, to bring in new players, onboard them into crypto, onboard them into Hive and the Splinterlands ecosystem, and use what we've already developed and have as essentially proprietary competitive advantages on blockchain to ramp up and fast track those projects. So what does that mean? That means things like the card market, the card rental market, tournaments on the blockchain, the scaling of having literally millions of transactions daily that can scale to a large audience of potential fans is a big deal. And let's hear what more Aggroed has to say about the timing.
When should we be expecting more specific sort of announcements? Is that 6 months off, or is that we should be expecting a bit sooner?
I'm hoping that some of these sport things are in Q3 of this year. So we're, that's not that far away. And arguably we're in it. So sometime in the next couple months here, we should be live, and we'll have announcements about kind of what's the overall league, what's the overall plan, who are the starting participants, who's coming in, and what shape will it take, what types of games are there, what leagues are going to be in this, how does the ecosystem work. We're building out those plans, we're building out those websites, we have signed deals, and this stuff's going to go live pretty soon, next 3 months.
So there you have it, straight from Aggroed's mouth, and possibly why, when we hear Matt speaking on the town halls, why he's so bullish on Splinterlands and the overall ecosystem here, because hey, they have a feather in their cap, actually probably two feathers in their cap right now that they have yet to drop the news on. That's 2 leagues here, sports leagues, going live in Q3. So within the next 3 months, 2 brand new games, or at least 2 leagues with 1 game at a minimum, that are coming to Hive and to the Splinterlands ecosystem. So how big of an announcement is this? Well, depending on what leagues come into play, this could be super game changing. So Rare is a soccer or / European football blockchain based game right now that exists. The soccer was mentioned as a use case here in Blockchain Gaming World's interview with Aggroed. Could it be a soccer game or a European football game as the league that's coming in, maybe like the Premier League or something similar? Yeah, it definitely could be, although that would seem to be a little repetitive with SoRare already in the space. But in Q3, let's take a minute and take a step back and kind of think about what leagues, from a sports perspective, may want additional eyes and ears on them in Q3. Well, it could be hockey, I guess. American hockey could be one sports league that could be interesting to see a game built around, or it could be the NFL. Can you imagine the NFL, the National Football League, so American football, having an NFT-based game that runs on the Hive blockchain? Could it be a coincidence that Weirdbid was brought in to be the esports manager for Splinterlands right before these deals and signings with multiple sports leagues were announced? Can you imagine, take a step back and just think, and this is hypothetical, I have no inside information, but let's just say it is a sports league as big as the NFL. And we know how big things like DraftKings and FanDuel are when it comes to fantasy sports, whether it be fantasy football, fantasy baseball, etc. Can you imagine the impact that in the press that Splinterlands would get if a big league like the NFL, as an example, came in and allowed their players, their teams, their game to be on the blockchain with NFTs that could be purchased in packs, could be rented, could participate in tournaments like fantasy sports tournaments, perhaps, using those assets. So maybe, as a hypothetical example, maybe you don't, as a fantasy sports player, do a draft or an auction for your season. Maybe there's a weekly tournament where you have to own or rent the NFTs to use the players that you would like to use in the game, and the best lineup wins, and they're scoring based on actual game performance. So it drives viewers to the sport, and it drives interaction on the blockchain with NFTs that you rent or own to be able to set the maximum or the optimal lineups that you believe will win. And what do you get for winning? Well, you get things like SPS or the equivalent in this new game. And the players benefit because, again, they're getting additional publicity in the league on this blockchain. So that could just be a crazy example of what's to come. Now, we don't know. It may not be a fantasy sports based game. It may be a game based on the cards, and instead of battles you do sports type games. But just imagine, again, the concept of fantasy sports potentially moving to the blockchain. That's a game changer. Look at how big fantasy football is, for example, in America. Additionally, if you had baseball cards in the past, now if we're able to bring sports cards or sports collectibles onto a blockchain that not only have collectible value and scarcity and rarity, but now can be used in a game fashion, well, that just provides a different spin on things that other companies like Topps and all these other blockchain-based companies are bringing to the blockchain, but really have no, quote, game around them. Splinterlands could add that to the mix. And again, Splinterlands has proprietary assets that they can ramp up and spin up that just blow the doors off of things like Vivi and others when it comes to the NFT market, as far as rentals, as far as markets for sale, as far as onboarding currency and being able to also get that currency out of the ecosystem if you want to withdraw it. So a lot of advantages that Splinterlands has that they can bring to the table here pretty quickly, and we're already seeing it. Aggrod's talking about, just literally within months here in Q3, we're going to be able to play a live version of this game. So there's a lot happening here. This is big news in my opinion, especially because if you're a Splinterlands asset holder, like if you stake SPS, or maybe you own a node, well, probably as an incentive to have you try this new game, you're probably going to get some NFTs dropped to you if, for example, you stake SPS or you own a node, or if you have vouchers, you might be able to get some exclusive NFTs earlier that others won't have access to necessarily. So there's going to be benefits to already being in the ecosystem to start with. And oh yeah, by the way, all the new players that are coming into the ecosystem are now going to get exposure to Splinterlands. So they may cross over, they may come for example, for the Premier League, or they may come for NHL or for NFL, but they may see Splinterlands and say, hey, this game is cool, how do I get into this? So there's going to be cross-pollination, there'll be new players, and benefits to existing ecosystem holders. Now, the last comment I'll make here is, again, it sounds like Splinterlands will be launching this new game or games on the Hive blockchain to manage the scalability that we've all known to come to know and love here, with Splinterlands being able to run millions of battles per day, rent millions of cards per day, and transact like a ton of market sales per day. So what does that mean for Hive? Well, it means extra publicity for Hive in a bear market. So not financial advice, of course, but if you think something like this, bringing extra eyes and ears to crypto, to onboarding to the game, could be good for the blockchain it runs on, well, Hive could be something you might consider looking into, especially as it's kind of down right now from a general market perspective. So there it is, a recap on the news that I think is big news for Splinterlands, the game, the ecosystem, and all of us as asset holders. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and definitely look at the link I have in the video description to Blockchain Gaming World's interview and their channel. Definitely give them a subscribe, give them a shout out, and give them a follow. So until next time, keep stacking those stats.